Hey everyone, and welcome to another video. So oh boy, we need to talk. Okay, so A Court of Silver Flames by Sara J. Maas. I started reading this May 15th in 2023. And it is September 25th, 2024. So it's been well over a year. It's been almost 2 years. Like next May, it would be 2 years. It's been well over a year since I started reading this book. I started reading it and stopped and rage quit. And then I started reading it again and tried again a few months ago and couldn't get through it. And so I started it again on September 18th, and it's now the 25th. So it's only been a couple of days and I got through it. So this is my official review for A Court of Silver Flames by Sara J. Maas. Let's get into this, because boy, do I have a lot of thoughts. So, you know the age-old saying, don't judge a book by its cover? Well, my moral lesson in all of this is don't judge a book by the book, which makes no sense. But, basically, the whole issue with this book, my issue with it was it's book 5 in the series, if you count the tiny novella that is book 4, and A Court of Thorns and Roses, A Court of Mist and Fury, A Court of Wings and Ruin, and then A Court of Frost and Starlight. Those are all, this whole series is written in first person from Feyre's perspective, and she's the main character, and I loved her. We had 3 books, 4, counting the small novella, to like love her, fall in love with her, and get to know her, and I really did love her. I loved Resend. I loved the whole plot, the story, the world, everything. I'll pop up my reviews of those books here, or a playlist to them so you can go check them out. And then all of a sudden, this book, we go to her sister's perspective, who is a very antagonistic character, and I hated her in the regular series, but she's always been like a side character in a scene here and there, so it never bothered me. And then now she's all of a sudden the main character and the main focus, and so when I started, I just could not get through it because I hated Nesta so badly, and so I just rage quit, and I lost interest, and I tried again, and then I lost interest. So the second time that I tried, I did start trying with the audiobook, and then I had to give the audiobook back because it was like for free for a certain amount of time, and then I lost my membership. So, but I remember at the time the audiobook narrator had such a gentle voice that when you read it, she came off as more sad than the way she comes off as hateful and rude and sassy. And so when I started my third time, I wanted to do this challenge because then at the time I had started Iron Flame, which was the second book in Fourth Wing, and I hated it and rage quit on it. And so I you know what, I have 3 books that I am doing this with, so I might as well make a video about my challenge to get through books that I hate that are part of series that I love. Whatever that's going to be called. So if that's up by the time you guys are watching this, I will have a link to it, which it probably will, so I'll link to that as well. It's a fun video, so go check that out. It was definitely really intriguing. But anyways, so basically I was like, okay, I really want to finish this book. And in order to get through it, it's going to help me to have the audiobook. So I was listening to the audiobook as I went through this, and then I tried the dramatized audiobook, which had a full cast of characters and sound effects and music, and it does skip a few lines, but I fell in love with it, and it was like a movie. Like reading is like that. Like I'm very visual. I'm not in some cases, but like it just exploded the story in my mind, and it got me through it, and it got me through the parts that I hated. And then that's when the book took the rest of it. And I'm beating around the bush here, but essentially I actually do love this book, and I love Nesta's character. And honestly, I cannot think of a book that has a bigger character arc. It's like, I don't want to say the best character arc, because for me there are different aspects to a good character arc. Like, it's the character arc with the biggest change in a character, because Nesta goes from this drunk who is rude and antagonistic and hates everyone, and I just hated the way she treated her friends, her family, the people around her who were trying to help her, and to go from that to where she ends up, it's such a powerful and big character arc. And so for me, that was huge. And it's 700 pages, And there are parts that do get a little slow, but all of the slow parts and the whole book, every scene in this is perfectly and intricately designed to further Nesta's character arc. And you know me, I'm the kind of person that I hate a strong female character, and there is a lot of like strong female character and feminism in this book, as there are themes of that throughout the series. That doesn't get too bad. It got a little where I was kind of annoyed with it a little bit in this book toward the end, but they're not Mary Sue's, because I'm telling you, the training scenes, there were so many training scenes that it was very, very, very realistic, but it started to get repetitive, but in a like literally like realistically how somebody who is not trained could go to somebody who is trained. Like, I have never seen a character get trained as well and as detailed and as lengthy as in this book. Like, the majority of this book is literally her training to become a warrior, and then all the little drama stuff that happens in between there, and then so she goes from training to this time in the library. She makes some friends. There's a bigger plot going on that is like the whole series and the whole world, but that's a very small part of the story. The majority of the story is Nesta's arc. There is a romance in this series, and it does have spicy scenes. It has spicy scenes, like, let me tell you. However, I'm not one to read spicy scenes, but the ones that started off in here all had, to me, an emotional purpose, and it was almost interesting. Like, it's weird because I don't like spicy scenes, but there was weight and purpose behind them that I could appreciate until the end. I would say the midpoint, end-ish, it got a little where there was just spice for spice, and I just, you know, I love Nestian and Casa. I just really screwed up their names. I love Nesta and Cassian. I love Cassian as a character. So at first, his perspectives are always the one that I was looking forward to, because at the time I hated Nesta. And then I also, when I first started this book, the first time and the second time, I was like, oh, I hate Nesta, and now she's the main character, and it's portraying Feyre and Rhysand as the bad guys, and I could not get past that betrayal because I love them as the main, like, they were the main characters in the series up until this point. Character development. You have to read the whole book to find out, like, the character arc, to find the character development. Like, duh, I'm an author, I should know this. And so I feel like I just needed to just read the book and give it a chance, and when I did, I ended up loving it. Like, I cannot tell you how much I love Nesta, and in fact, there were a lot of times, like, I relate to her. There's a chapter 50. If you know what 50 is, you know it. I cried. There's a lot of parts that I relate to her. I relate to her relationship with her father. I relate to different aspects about her and a lot of the anger that she holds on to. I relate to some of the other characters that she meets in here, and I love Cassian as a character. He's so nice, and he's so loving and patient, and he fights for her, and he stays with her even when she treats him so horribly. And honestly, I kind of want a relationship like that. Like, I want to write a relationship like that, so that's going to be fun. And in an odd way, it kind of reminded me of my husband and how I can have a lot of temper and a lot of anger issues, and I did when we were dating especially. And my husband was just kind and loving enough that he stayed with me, and now we're 8 years married. But it's such a good romance. There's like, I cannot, like, the emotional weight to these characters and how they fall for each other is so good. And then toward the end, it gets to where it's like spice for spice's sake, and they kind of lose that emotional aspect, but it's still kind of, you still remember the arc and the journey that they've gone on at this point. So another thing that I like about Sara J. Maas is she is very similar to Cassandra Clare in the aspect that the way that they describe monsters is horrific in a way that's not horror or scary. It just makes it so much more thrilling and exciting to read. Her action scenes are really good too, and like heart pounding, where you just like, you got to keep reading, and it's like, oh my god, this fight with this monster, and it's so scary, and it's like, oh my gosh, and it's so good. The dramatic part at the end, there was one aspect that for me, I didn't quite like it. The action scenes were really good and well written. It just was a little bit too much feminism for me. And then I felt like it should have been Feyre and her sisters instead of Feyre and her 3 new friends that she makes, or 2 new friends that she makes. I'm not spoiling anything. But then the events after that were so dramatic and like stuff happens. If you want feels, like gut-wrenching feels, there's a lot. Like chapter 50 was it. There's this stuff before that. There's a lot of like stuff with Cassian where they fight and argue and you just get so many feels for both of them. There's a lot of feels at the end. I did see the dramatic, the big thing coming. And in fact, when I was first started this book, at some point I accidentally saw some fan art on Pinterest of that scene. And so I didn't know if that was some fan art somebody had made up or if it was fan art of a scene that actually took place in this book. And then events in this book were kind of confirming that that's probably where it was going to go. And then I predicted that was going to happen, and that, oh, okay, well, it looks like it's going to be bad, but it's actually going to be okay, like happily ever after. I called all of that, but it didn't take away from my enjoyment of it, because the scene was still really well written, that it just really got to me emotionally. So I would say Sara J. Maas's writing style is very passive, and she has a lot of like mistakes and stuff like that that's noticeable, and I do feel like she needs a better editor, and I feel like we've heard, found a comment somewhere from somebody that said that about a book in the Crescent City series or something, that said that the first chapter in that book was riddled with mistakes and that her editor just needs to be fired, like let go of. So I feel like she needs a better editor, which is weird because she's famous. You'd think she'd be able to afford the best and get the best, but there were quite a bit of mistakes in that. The dramatized audiobook, by the way, is so good. I'm going to be rating it, if I can find it on Audible separately, from this book, because that for me is a 5-star dramatized audiobook. Like, I've never heard one before, like that was my first one, but the cast did such a good job of voicing the lines as I was following along. Like, the emotions were even better and stronger because I was listening to their voices as they were yelling or crying or sobbing or, fighting or screaming or like whatever it was so good. And I feel like my enjoyment, I still would have enjoyed this book without that, but I feel like my enjoyment of this book was enhanced by the dramatized audiobook, so I have to give that a shout out. And the regular audiobook did start out really good too. The narrator of that one did a good job. I switched to the dramatized audiobook, which is different and has, the cast and all that stuff, so that's different. So I wanted to shout that out too. So honestly, overall, I would say there are things that I would change in the ending of this book, or leading up to the end, the big action and fight scene and stuff. And there were a few things I would have done differently. And a few aspects I didn't like the feminism in it, and it just kind of like, ugh, but Nesta's character arc is so good. Like, I play a clip of me hating her. All right, Court of Silver Flames. I have read the beginning of this 3 times to get me through Nesta. Because the problem with this book, as I've said, is that we had a whole series with one character, Feyre, and then all of a sudden you write a book in the series, which is supposed to be book 5, if you count the novella as 4. It's supposed to be the 5th book in a series, and without classifying it differently, you write a book and switch to a sister's perspective who is a witch that we don't like. And by which, I'm referring to a cuss word that I do not want to say and should not say. And I legitly can say that I do like I love Nesta as a character, and I love her relationship with Cassian and where it ends up and how it's so emotional and realistic how they get there and how they fight for their relationship and how much Cassian fights for her because of how badly she treats him and everybody around her, and then the realistic aspect of what she's gone through. And the other thing that I forgot to note too is one thing that I started to appreciate about it when every time I would be like, I hate Nesta, I hate the way she's acting. I can see this underlying theme in her books that she shows how people deal with trauma, and a lot of the characters, like, she's very, very detailed and respectful and realistic on how people deal with trauma in different ways. And with Nesta, it's like an intervention moment from this person is ruining their life and they're angry and they're just ruining their lives with like alcohol and drugs or addiction, whatever you want to call it. And the family and friends that they have around them do an intervention, and the person hates them for it. They hate them for it. But then in the end, when the intervention works, they love and appreciate and understand why their family and friends did that intervention, because they needed it in order to change and to stop from destroying their life. And that's basically the story, and that's basically the theme, is this character Nesta, who has so much anger, so many issues, and, you know, alcohol and just all this other stuff that she's doing and going through and acting out of, and this journey of the intervention to intervene and help her get her life back together. And it's actually like a really powerful theme. It's a really powerful message, and it also shows like what the other person, like a person who loves a person like that, would go through, like Cassian, what he goes through to love her repeatedly, even though she doesn't love herself and she doesn't love anything or anyone, and it often hurts him deeply as well, and he gets his heart broken multiple times, but he's still there to fight for her. Chapter 46, 47, 48, 49, and 50, so powerful. And Cassian is the dude. Like, I love Rhysand as a character, he's one of my favorites, but Cassian is like, for me, after this book, is like almost my favorite, because of just how loyal he is to Nesta, and how much he fights for her and fights for their relationship even when she won't. And it's just like, I love it. And so for me, like, there's a lot, like, it took me so long to read this book, and there's a lot of things I didn't like, there's a lot of things that I would fix, but I just appreciate it so much for the theme, for properly portraying an intervention in a circumstance where somebody's ruining their life and their friends are just trying to do the right thing, and somebody trying to get their life together and fight to be better than what they are. And then I appreciate the character arc, and then the plot line, the bigger plot line going on, all the fantasy stuff, the monster stuff. There's some objects, magic objects, and lots of power. There's some really good action scenes in this book. There are slow training moments and slow, like, let's go to in a library kind of moments, and then let's make some friends kind of moments that were really slow, but they weren't slow enough to make me stop reading. Like, I just continued reading. I feel like Iron Flame had a lot more slow moments that took me out and made me stop reading, whereas this one, once I restarted it on September 18th, I read it every day until I finished it. Basically, I would read a little portion every day as much as I could. So like, I was on page 97 on the 18th, I was on 144 on the 19th, and then I was on 206 on the 20th, and then I forgot to log it, because at that point, from 206 on, I was just reading every day as much as I could, and to the point where, like, in my wind down time, I wanted to do nothing else, and I stopped. Like, I didn't edit a couple nights, and I was reading this instead, and then the next time I logged it was September 24th, where I was on page 612, and then early in the AM, I logged it last night before I went to bed, which counted as September 25th. I was on page 739, and then I finished the last 30 minutes of it tonight. So overall, I would say it's higher than 4.5 stars. I would say the theme makes it a 5-star read for me, and the dramatized audiobook is a 5-star read for me, but I do agree there were a lot of slow pacing moments in the middle of it, and there were some things that I would have changed, so it's not quite 5 stars either. And her writing style is not, like, it's not the tightest, and she needs a better editor. So it's gonna be a weird number for me, like 4.8 or something like that, but I may round up to 5 stars, because it genuinely is a really good book, and it was definitely worth reading when I actually read it. So this has been my review for A Court of Silver Flames by Sara J. Maas. What did you guys think of this book? Let me know in the comments below. And what were your initial thoughts, and how did you start off feeling about Nesta, and where did you end up? Did you start off hating her like me, and was it a real, like, did it take you guys a while to get through the book, or did you like her and were kind of just intrigued by this at all? And guys, can we just, like, swoon about Cassian in the comments below, please? Because, like, Cassian is, like, so amazing. Love this book. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below, and if you liked this video, please be sure to give it a like and subscribe for more writing and reading videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And in the meantime, if you like my review of A Court of Silver Flames by Sara J. Maas, which I hated this book, I loved the series, I rage quit on this book, then check out my review of Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros, which I loved the first book. I hated that book and rage quit on it, and I finished it and ended up loving it. So check out the review, because that's an interesting one too. You don't want to miss it. Trust me, like, I need to stop judging books by the book, which again doesn't make any sense, but check out my review of Iron Flame, find out why I hated it and why I ended up loving that book too.